Welcome to Beyond the Balance, where we redefine wealth and rebuild futures. Because financial freedom isn't just about numbers, it's about making your money work for you, your future, and your freedom. We're here to talk about wealth, growth, and the stories that prove you don't need a perfect balance to make a perfect comeback. There you go. Okay, today I'm sitting down with Debbie Merrick, an entrepreneur, strategist, and connector who's been building businesses for nearly 20 years. She's co founded DM Business Advisors with her husband, helping companies grow through smart systems, digital marketing, and now AI and automation. Debbie's helped over 400 businesses claim more than 40 million in ERTC tax credits, and she did it by building a powerful referral network from the ground up. She's also run Digital Girls with Vision, empowering women to launch and grow online and digital products and courses. If you're ready to turn passion into profit and learn how to build something that lasts, Debbie's got gems for you. Debbie, I'm happy to have you here. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, like, that just really touched my heart, like, it's just like, wow, it's like sometimes, you just are in the day in and day out of, like, what you're doing, and then just to take a minute and just acknowledge, where you've come from and what you what you're doing, you know?
Well, actually, and it's funny that you say that, is because I don't tell anybody that I give them introductions, and I kind of do the background research and try to
Aw,
make one
yeah,
up.
you did a great job.
Thank you. And every person has been absolutely surprised. And I'm happy to do that because you guys are
Aw.
wonderful people. And I'm so grateful. I've told every person, I'm grateful to have you here. And so before I dive into any questions and anything like that, I always want to start off by hearing about your journey and just hearing about you and where you started off.
Well, because, I'm just, it's Easter week and all of this, like what we're, just, reflecting on, the sacrifices, with, Jesus and all the, when this is being, recorded. I mean, I know it may be later, but I just, every entrepreneur that I know has been through some kind of trauma or something that, they didn't think that they really could do what they've done
Mhm.
because of where they started. And for me, it actually started when I was a child because I actually had um, corrective blindness. I had
Really?
cataracts at like age 5. And so I had 5 surgeries. And
Wow.
yeah. And so I had like a very low self-esteem, of myself because I had to wear really thick glasses. I still wear my, I have contacts in with reading glasses right now, but I really overcame like I mean, right now it looks like okay, this is easy for her to like be on camera and speaking and all of that. But when I tell you that I was really one of those kids that was an observer, like I was always seeing what other people were doing and the cool kids and all this stuff. And I was, I was bullied pretty heavily as a kid, even by adults. And, because people just don't understand, like they don't get that, like, wow, this is actually a blessing because I can see, because I could have been blind, and that would have been, a totally different life experience.
Yes.
So really my, my faith in God, at a very young age, it's like I was brought up Catholic and, I just, I didn't even understand what having God in my life was really meant to, like how crucial like that was because I wasn't in it by myself. And I persevered through my own like lack of personal, confidence and, just being able to, and I had a lot of failures. Like even going to college at U of A in Tucson, like I went 3,000 miles away from home in Wisconsin, and
Wow.
I had a marketing degree, and I had, I went into, business, like as far as like commission sales. So I was in real estate, the mortgage business, and then what really was my passion, which ended up getting me into the entrepreneurial space, was I was a designer for custom furniture for about 7 years before I had my own award-winning retail home and gift business here in Scottsdale. And so, but again, it's just, people a lot of times, go through just different seasons in their life, and and for me, like I said, you know, I know that it's only because of my relationship with Jesus and God and the communities that I've been a part of, which I actually, my that part of me really getting, you know, born again was not until I was like 31, so it wasn't like, but I always knew, like I always had some kind of, spirituality or, faith. And my husband, being, that we've been together, almost 25 years. Um,
Congrats.
yeah. Yeah. And we went through a very difficult time. Um, at the time, right before we had the store. So we actually were, it was 2006, and we'd already been together for about 6 years. And we had been really, I mean, another bullying situation where people didn't believe that he and I belonged together. And we were like
Wow.
best friends, and we were best friends, and we'd already built like homes together and traveled all over the place and done all these things. But the biggest part was that I really wanted to get married. And he was like, well, we live together, we've lived together for 5 years, what's the difference? Like, why? It doesn't matter. So we had all these coaches. I mean, we had all these people around us who were like, he's never going to marry you. It's never going to happen. It's ever, and again, it's like, this can happen in your life with your relationships, or it can happen in your business or your job, or, where people are doubting something that, they see on the outside. We even had a counselor that we went to, and science told us that we wouldn't be together because we took the Myers-Briggs test, and literally they were like, this is impossible. Like, you guys are totally different on the spectrum
Wow.
and as far as personalities. And I was like, no, I'm like, I don't understand this. So literally we broke up for about 4 months. And during that time, the store that I was manager of, and I was on full commission, and I think that's sometimes can be like a starting point for people before they go into entrepreneurship, because that way you have an ownership. You have that understanding that, like, this is up to me. Like,
Yeah.
nobody's giving me a salary or an hourly wage or something like that. And for about, 6.5 years, I was on full commission, and I wasn't married. Yes, Daryl, had, he had money that he was making from his, jobs and business, but literally, like, for the most part, it was on me, on me. And anyway, that June of 2006, like, my whole life imploded. So I lost my job because the company went under, and we were going to buy into a licensing agreement to like have one of the stores. And so
Wow.
the whole, licensing, they had like probably, I don't know, 10 stores, something like that at the time. And so I lost my job. I moved out of my 4,600 square foot house into an apartment, because we broke up. So, I mean, like, everything happened in like a 2-week period of time.
Okay.
And so, yeah. so, and so the only other thing would have been like, a financial tsunami with like taxes and something, but that didn't happen. But anyway, so literally, this was my like lowest point, where at that time because I really thought that he and I, were not going to be together. And, my dream of having my own business or even part of a business, was pretty shattered at that point. And so it took me to going to another, like, because I actually have been a part of, it's called Clemmer and Associates. It's a personal development leadership training program that's out of Northern California. And so a lot of times you can, like, once you've gone through their programs, you can go back and you can staff. So you can go and do, the work again, but in a different way because you're supporting other people. So I went during, just was it August? Yeah, it was August, and had an amazing experience because that was really my starting point of knowing that I was going to have a relationship with Jesus. Like that, and I didn't understand anything else, and then like right after that, everything lined up to bring Daryl back into my life. We made a decision to open a retail store in Scottsdale, which opened like 6 months later. So, I mean, when I tell you that when you surrender, like you really surrender to God and just say, look, I don't know what, this is not my plan, but this is God's plan. He can make so many things happen in a short period of time if
Yep.
you just really press in and just, and 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 I didn't realize that I had been so selfish in my relationship with him. I didn't fully understand it, but it just was one of those things where it's like, because we didn't know, okay, like, yes, our next journey of having the retail business was going to also be like one of the best things we've ever done and one of the most difficult things that we've ever done together. And so, and yeah, there's a lot of lessons there's a lot of lessons learned in that, but I would never change it, because I really feel like people a lot of times they may be playing too small, and
Mhm.
they don't trust the fact that, like, you may be more capable than you realize. And if
Well,
you continue to ask people for help, because that's really, I mean, I I tell people, I'm like, I'm not the smartest person, like, I mean, and especially since now I'm in, like, finance and, consulting and some of this stuff. I'm not the smartest person, but I know how to ask for help. I know how to, go to people that I respect, go to people that know more than me, and sometimes pay them, sometimes get in their environments, and just be a student, and not be the one that feels like, well, I've got it all figured out and I know what I'm doing and I'm going to do this in an isolation, and in a bubble. And, especially when you're moving out into a more, I would say, risk, because business is risk, so
yeah,
it's not like you don't have that that cushion in saying, unless, if you've got a spouse or somebody who, makes a living, and then you're doing this, as more of, your own projects. And, but even then, who nobody wants to lose money, you know.
exactly.
So you want to make sure that you have those things in place. And that's actually, so because we had, the 4 years of the retail business, and it was like a dream come true. It was amazing. Like, we bought pieces from all over the world, and we also had artists that I actually would have consign, because that included, more inventory for me, because I didn't have to pay for it. So that's another strategy that I tell people. I'm like, if you can leverage a collaboration with somebody that you can arbitrage, their goods or services, and then you're making a piece of it, and then you're actually getting another revenue stream from that business, it can be a game changer, because It filled up my store more so that I didn't have to buy my own inventory all the time. And then I would, also, it would always be new because I would have, just moved, well, I moved everything around all the time. But at the same time, I always was bringing in new, cool, like jewelry and home decor and, art itself. And so, that kind of thing was super smart from a business perspective. But the thing that I didn't really have was a financial plan. And that's something that I really was overly optimistic sometimes, because when you get like an influx of sales and we had investors, we had loans, we had all that stuff, but we really didn't understand sometimes the fluctuation of the market, and of course the 2008 with the real estate recession, all of that. I mean, when people, you know, if they're being squeezed financially, they're not going to be buying a $300 candle. It's
Yeah,
I
maybe
mean,
not.
it's just a
Maybe not.
reality, it's like, and we had, some of these things that were very decadent, very luxurious things. And then we had very approachable, items in the store that were like $10, $30, gifts, fun, like a wedding gift or, a girlfriend, housewarming, something like that.
Yeah.
But, but anyway, it was just, to go through a period of time, which, I mean, like I said, I would never change it, but I would have put more pieces in place for a financial plan. And I really didn't have that. And that's actually what brought me into, after we lost, because we closed the store in 2010 and we lost everything trying to save it. And we even had an investor who was going to pick up the pieces, and do it with us. But, I mean, that's a whole nother interview. But it's just, but it's just knowing that, we like, really like were successful. That's the other thing. People, when they have to close something, when they have to do something, it's like it didn't work out for as long as you thought. But I mean, to
Right.
be open for 4 years, I mean, and have hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales, I mean, that's success,
That is
So
success, yes.
even though it was difficult because we were not able to pay back, some of the investors and people, and do some of this stuff, but it was just, I always tell people, I'm like, look, everyone has, in business, especially if you've had any real significant businesses, you've had some, failures. Excuse me. You've had some situations where, you couldn't control the market. You
Right.
couldn't control what was going on. And of course, the biggest lesson for me is that I didn't pivot fast enough. I didn't pivot, to where I could have made, and it was really on the the beginning of social media. So if it would have been a few years later, we might still be in business because it would have been easier to promote that way, but it really was too early for that.
Yeah.
We had e-commerce, so we did have some drop shipping and things like that to New York and Toronto, and some really, fabulous clients and things like that. But yeah, and then because we went through this transition in 2010, Daryl and I actually got married the next year. So when things don't make any sense, it's like, I mean, God just shows up again and says, just go,
Here
just
you
do
go.
this.
And it's really funny that you say that, because my favorite Bible verse actually is lean not in your own understanding, in your
Yes.
way submit to him. That is my
Hmm.
absolute favorite Bible verse. And it makes me wonder, like, is it because of the trials that you guys went through that he said, you know what, this is it, like, this is us, and you guys got married? Or like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
was that pivot?
Oh my gosh. It was so humbling because even, the people closest to me, they were like, "You're crazy. You don't have the money. You don't have what, you need to get married." And God provided every single step of the way until even the last day before we got married. Daryl didn't know what he was wearing. So he
Really?
didn't have like a suit or anything that was like, really, appropriate for the wedding. And so we went thrifting and we literally ended up at St. Vincent de Paul store in Phoenix and found a suit for, I think it was like $14. And
Wow.
it fit him perfectly. It fit him perfectly. It was French and vintage. It
Wow.
was like it was just sitting there, like, on the hanger, like, I know, I mean, I'm still like, I'm in awe of God, like, he just, again, because we were like, I don't care if he's wearing a white T-shirt and jeans. I mean, at this point, I mean, we had the theme of it was, like, Hollywood glam, kind of thing, because that's kind of my, like, I like that, like, thing. And I had like an antique like pillbox hat that had feathers and
Oh
little
my
gems
God.
on it and everything. And it was my friend, actually, another like huge blessing was this gal who she did like, I mean, she did like $500,000 like parties, like crazy over the top decor, flowers, all this stuff. And she just was like, "All right, Debbie." She's like, "I'll help you." And I didn't even see one thing before the wedding. Not a flower, not, any kind of decor, anything. And I mean, she just showed up with everything. And I mean, I did pay her something, but it wasn't even close to what it should have been, you know. And so, and then even with the food and the DJ and, all this stuff. And my friend who is my client, she gave the clubhouse where we got married and it looked like on the outside, because it had a like what do you call it? Like courtyard. And it was like, it looked like Italy, like it was just so pretty, and it was just sweet, and I had like 70 people. And, it was just one of those things where it was like, again, like stepping into something and not being embarrassed because God wants to give you more. If you let go of things, He really wants to give you more than what you even would imagine. And I know sometimes it's really hard to like, you know, yeah, I mean, you're just like, "Really? Is he really gonna honor, like, my commitments and me stepping into, like, another thing that," for us, it was marriage, because it was like, "Look, I mean, we've been together, it was like 11 years." And it was like, "Yeah, like, we wanna do this, and we're doing this for the right reasons." And sure, and that's where, after having that humbling experience, and we ended up moving in with my husband's parents and taking care of my father-in-law before he passed away, and just, having a really difficult like season where you're just like, gosh, you're making, moves and things are not really moving very quickly. And, just keep doing things to where you think, well, I'm doing the best that I know how. And sure enough, it's like, I mean, we went through some, like, it was quite a long time. And I honestly, I mean, I did have depression, I did have all this, but I refused to take any medications. I just don't, if you feel like you have to do that, that's fine. But like for me, I just knew, I was like, I can't do that. I just have to feel my way through this. And there
Right.
were times that it was like very difficult, but other times, I mean, I was blessed with, helping other people even when we were like barely had anything. Like God showed me times that I needed to help somebody when, I mean, that's kind of what, what happens. And so that time period between like 2018 and 19, I actually was doing business development for a wealth management company. And so I was learning all of the 1% strategies for taxes and for financial, with like private equity and hedge funds and all of these types of strategies. And I was like, wow, I'm like, they don't play the same rules like we do. Like, there's nothing the same. And I didn't make a lot of money in that season, but I ended up getting connected to some other people that were working with them also in business development. And then all of a sudden, like, we had deals that because I also was doing business funding, brokering. And I mean, we had some big projects, like a $40 million project in Mexico for a development of like a whole beach community and all this stuff. And then COVID happened. So
Oh,
all of that stuff went away, poof, like bye. And so anyway, one of the colleagues that I had during, because we were like in the beginning of COVID, like we were doing Uber Eats, like we were just serving like people because we were like, well, we don't have any kids and we're not staying home and we're just gonna like go and help the community, like the business. And especially I was like, oh my gosh, all the restaurants and going and doing all these deliveries and everything. It was really eye-opening to see what was really going on, in because we're in like North Central Phoenix, and a lot of restaurants, a lot of store, retail and things like that. So anyway, so because of this colleague of mine, we reconnected. He was telling me about the COVID relief money for these W-2 employers. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, that's amazing. Like they're, in addition to like the PPP loans, it's like this is another tax program. If they had like they had payroll, they were due back money because they either had to lock down, they were restricted, the percentage of occupancy, there were supply chain issues, all of these things that happened. So I pressed another time when I pressed in. I was like, okay, I don't know that many business owners at the time. I was like, I'm solopreneur. Like I had like one or two employees when I had my retail business. So anyway, ended up pressing in. My husband was doing Uber Eats mainly to keep, our bills paid. And I must have talked to over 1,000 business owners between September 2021 to, I don't know, it was like sometime in 2023. And we can actually, it's funny, we can still, if people still need to apply, they're actually starting up processing again, because so I built out like my own referral program. So I had our own business sales funnels. We had the whole process, we had this whole thing, and it was really eye-opening because it just went viral. Like it just like I sometimes I was doing up to 16 discovery calls a day. And I mean, I was just going, 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 and
yeah.
it was so lucrative for us, but I had to wait, I wasn't getting paid right away, and it was about the 4th month, and this is really key to anybody out there that is in a season where you haven't seen any movement with what you're doing, and you're doing the right, you're serving people, you're doing this. So at that 4th month, I went to a networking event in the morning, and I literally like collapsed. Like I just thought, what am I crazy? I'm like, I don't know if this is even real, because people hadn't really been getting the checks yet. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So my girlfriend, like we went next door, just kind of took a deep breath, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I'm like, if this is really where you want me, it's like, please help me understand like what, like is this really going to have the fruits, of my labor, you know?
Right.
And so it was such, I mean, I remember this like it was yesterday, and I know that sometimes it is so hard as an entrepreneur, and being, I believe in what I'm doing. I'm passionate about what I'm doing. People around me are like, "Are you crazy? Like, what are you doing?" like people, and even when I was on these, first months of doing it, I mean, people were like, "Is this real? Like, are people really getting money? Like, is this really, like, am I going to get in trouble from the IRS?" I mean, like that's the extent of it. And so anyway, it's just, I mean, luckily for us, it's been a complete blessing. We've helped, like, said, 400 business owners and brought a lot of money back into the economy, and we're still doing it. We're actually there's processing that's going on right now again because they actually turned it off September 15th, 2023, I believe it was. And people have been devastated. Like, people don't realize that people's businesses were relying on that money. I have a restaurant, actually an Indian restaurant here locally. I mean, they had a fire and they're
Oh,
working with
wow.
insurance, and that they need this 60, I mean, it's like $60,000, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we've been waiting over 2 years for this money." And so, again, it's like everybody's on their own journey, everybody's dealing with their own stuff. And so, because of the success that we've had, we've done other investments. We actually have a partial ownership in another company. It's a supplements manufacturer. And again, there's been lessons learned. It's like, because even when you do have an uptick of a financial situation for yourself, it's like you want to really be smart about putting more money away, and you also want to invest in your business, in your own business. Don't go, chasing after other people's businesses, because sometimes it's not an alignment. It's not a fit, and unfortunately, we had to find out the hard way. I mean, we're working with them to, get our money back and some of that. But again, it's like making these decisions that are in like an emotional time, because you're like, "Oh, I want to help people." It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this would be great and we'd have fun and, whatever." But understanding, like, God wanted us to continue to work with the business owners and help people with these strategies. And so that's what he's doing. So he's, I mean, I have my other project, Digital Girl with Vision, which has been a really cool experiment in a way that I wanted to. I had actually reconnected with a friend of mine last summer, and she's been going through a lot. She's a single mom, and she's a graphic designer. She's phenomenal, and so we've been working together on putting digital products and promoting courses, and just really doing the strategies. And what we didn't realize was, even though we haven't made a lot of money doing that, it gave us a platform to really learn what's going on in social media right now,
Mhm.
with especially Instagram, and even LinkedIn, um, and TikTok. So, but the thing is that what I didn't know, but I pressed in because I've been paying her, and then we have another gal that works with us. And what we didn't realize was that, because my husband has been a programmer and a systems engineer, and he's done digital marketing, Google Ads, and some of these things that we actually, when we were putting our sales funnels together for the ERC program, we didn't realize that we were actually implementing some of these automations with Jotform and Zapier and some, other, sales, you know, CRM. He built a custom CRM, which now you can do it, with other software and things like that. But what we have just done is we also invested in two different masterminds of 8 and 9 figure AI agency consultants, that they work, with people globally, businesses of all sizes. And we didn't, sometimes it's smart to invest because it can collapse time.
Mhm.
Because this way you're not saying, I mean, we could have taken another 12 months, and we could have spent, all this time researching all these tools, all these case studies, all this stuff. But now, because we've done that, it's like we have, I mean, we're ready to launch actually in May, and we're super excited. We already have clients that want to work with us. So again, it's God's, flow of like, hey, you guys have like been obedient in, hiring people and keeping them, on the payroll and wanting the best, for all of this. And so we're doing it actually within the same company. It's DM Business Advisors. And we, didn't want to do like a full other branding because we already have clients. Like I'm sure we're going to do some outreach and we're going to get people cold market, but that's really not, what we probably have to do. So, which, again, and people will be like, oh, you're so lucky. It's like, no, we're not. Like, we've just done a lot of work,
Yeah.
like that's, it's like, oh, people are going to see us and they're going to like, oh, wow, you guys are starting, at a different level. And I'm like, well, because of the work that we've done and we've built a 7-figure, sales funnels, I mean, we have that credibility, so we're not even going into like a whole different, realm. I mean, some of the tools and things, I mean, it's pretty phenomenal, like what you can do with Gemini and Claude and Chat GPT, of course. But I caution people that if you are looking at doing AI for your business, I mean, I would say like because things are changing so rapidly in the space, is like really look at your time. Like, because you know how they say, like, if you're doing something and you could be making, more money per hour doing something in your business versus learning a new skill. Because, I mean, for example, I follow Ty Lopez and I love listening to him because he came, out of the personal brand and also social media marketing. And he's big on AI right now. And he actually hired a guy himself for one of his companies to save him an hour a week on doing a task. And so again, it's like you have to look at like, do I really want to go and learn all this stuff? Or should I like hire somebody like my husband, who happens to be a programmer, who we're not charging any differently than like other AI agencies. So you might as well get the benefit of having somebody that actually knows 5 languages and, has been a digital marketer and, a process, systems engineer. I mean, you get
Yeah.
like
That's actually very true that you say that. And I think I've actually spoke about that in a podcast episode that I did by myself.
Mhm.
Side hustling versus, just enhancing the skills that you already have, or taking from other people and, getting more per hour for what you already know, what you already said, right? And myself, I have a multitude of skills because I'm a caregiver. I've been in healthcare for over 5 years now, and I'm going to school for computer science. And so I know AI
Oh, wow,
like
that's
that.
excellent.
Thank you. And I'm now an entrepreneur. I actually have a business now. And so it's like learning all of these skills and trying, especially as a new business owner, trying
Mm.
to learn how to divert all your skills and put them and, enhance them. It's been a huge learning curve. And
Oh, for
so
sure, yeah.
you've dropped so many gems. And I guess the biggest thing that stands out to me right now is that I want to ask you is besides, trying to get more for your buck within an hour is for somebody who's really starting out, what is, a great starting point for them? We talked about, waiting,
Mhm.
you have to be through your season. There's going to be good times, there's going to be hard
Yeah.
times. And then
Mhm.
also, knowing when to give things up, knowing when
I
to press
know, it's
in.
hard, yes, that's really
Exactly.
hard.
Knowing when to keep your money close and knowing when
Yeah.
to invest.
Mhm,
But
yeah.
for somebody who, this stuff might overwhelm them, who might not know anything, what would you tell them?
Okay, so I actually learned something, and it actually has to do with AI, which
Really?
I did not realize that the way that the AI is building on itself is you can actually ask ChatGPT a question from the perspective of the person who you need the advice from.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
you could say, look, okay, if I'm doing this marketing program, you can say, okay, I'm looking for advice from a 20-year CMO, which is a creative marketing, operations person, um, or chief marketing officer. It's like that CMO, how would they build a marketing campaign for XYZ product, service, whatever? And I'm not kidding you, that blew me away because it's
Mhm.
not like you're just asking, like, how do you do this? You're actually asking. So, I mean, obviously, if you know people, then go to them. Because sometimes I think the biggest mistake I've seen is people are not researching like what's going on. Like, even like with Digital Girl with Vision, like we have been following all these other accounts of people who are like doing different hacks and hooks and all of these different things because I'm like, I can't figure this out on my own. And so to the mass information right now is just so incredible and gives you as a new business owner such an advantage than we had. Like when I was opening my store in 2007, like I was like an island. Like, I didn't know how to, like, I mean, even though I had been in retail before, but the structure of my business really was different because
Yeah.
I had much more inventory because the other company that I did custom furniture design, we ordered everything. So it was a complete different process.
Right.
So I had to literally learn the home and gift business, and I went to the trade shows. So that's another thing that I highly recommend. If you've got conferences, if you've got events that are not too expensive, obviously, and then if people are like maybe somebody bigger in the industry than you, if they're looking for help, or I mean, because again, I mean, some of these areas of business, it's like there's so much opportunity that, like, yeah, your competitors, like, I mean, so what, like, there's enough for everyone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
that's
I mean,
true.
I would definitely say that spending more time with, like I'm on the podcast, like I listen to people that make a lot more money than I do,
Mhm.
and it doesn't matter that I've, had a seven figure, business. It's like because it can be taken away, things can happen and you can have adjustments, and we've done some stupid things with our money, and because we thought at the time it was the right thing to do. And so I just tell people, like, get just in the minds of people who are more successful than you, and
Right.
just know that, like, wow, if this kid did this at 18 years old or whatever, and he was working out of his, dorm room or his, parents' basement, it's like, then you can do it, and you can get around the right people at the right time and have those, and but again, I really think the arbitrage and the collaborations to build revenue streams, I think in this day and age, there's no excuses around that. Because if you only have one service, and again, maybe, I mean, if it's really working for you, that's great. But if you can include other people to be able to work together and share sales and do that kind of thing, I really think that you're going to have even more success, especially sooner than later. because there's so much noise out there, and distractions, and people are like, they have the, attention span of a gnat, and
Yeah.
so
Oh
I'm
God.
even hoping, even with this interview, I mean, I hope I'm giving enough, to people that they feel like, hey, you know what? It's like, I understand, like, everybody's busy and they've got a lot going on. And, I just, because, I'm 55, so it's
Hey, wow.
I'm like, hey,
That's a good
I
55.
I love it. I know. I don't feel 55. I used to think about what a 55-year-old woman was like, and that is not me today. Like, I will tell you that.
You're
I feel
living your
closer to
life.
35.
Yeah, that is awesome. You look great for 55, by the way. I mean,
Oh,
that
thank
is
you.
such a huge come up. I mean, and it's funny that you say that as well, because I think about like my future self all the time, and I'm super young. I'm 22 years old. And so I
Awesome.
thank you. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what am I gonna be like? Am I gonna be successful? Like
Oh my gosh, you're already doing like stuff that I didn't do it when I was 22. I was barely out of college and I was still chasing boys and
thank you. I mean, and it's such a huge because none of this came about until about 6 months ago. The
okay.
fact that you've included, other people and having that collaboration is such a huge thing because I actually met a friend who encouraged me. She's had her podcast for 5 years and she's like, just do it, And I'm like, no,
Awesome.
I cannot possibly do that at all, And she's like, why not? And I'm like, I don't know why not. I can't. And I've always been insecure about starting things and not being able to finish them is because I have a
Mm.
very bad ADHD and I wasn't diagnosed until recently. So about 2 to 3 years ago, I was finally diagnosed, and my psychiatrist was like, "Yeah, this is you're low functioning. You're like terrible. This is why you
Oh,
finish
no.
things." Yeah, and I was like, "Wow," and so it gave me a lot of recourse to think about my own life, and you know, now that you know what your roadblock is, how do you work around it? And I would pick things up and not finish them and not know how to overcome that until one day. Actually, December of last year, I said, I'm going to write a book. I've always wanted to write a book, and I did it. It was only like 50
Wow. Oh
Thank
my
you.
god.
50 pages. And I was like, wow, I was so proud of myself because I actually did something that I've wanted to do forever. And so I said, let's take
Wow.
this a step further. And I said, maybe I will make a podcast. And I've been able to get in touch with people like yourself, people who are skilled and knowledgeable and know what they're doing, and them being able to tell me, just do it you know,
Just do it.
just
Yes,
just move forward.
absolutely.
You're going to fail. You will
Yep.
fail.
Oh
So
my
you might
gosh.
as well do it anyways. And that's kind of my ministry, how I'm giving back
Wow.
to other people, allowing
Amazing.
them
Mhm.
to see, you're gonna be scared, but you should do it anyways. I mean,
Absolutely. Oh my god, you have no idea. Like, I mean, by the grace of God, like, I still get intimidated. Like, I actually had a radio show last
oh
year
wow.
it was on a Los Angeles radio station that I paid too much money for, but but I made such I like, I want people to hear this. I made such a big mistake because I didn't trust myself to
Mm.
do something myself. I brought in I mean, the guy really ran the pot I mean, the radio show podcast. I mean, it was so horrible. Like, it was awful. It was like I literally didn't have a voice, barely. Like, I was like, "Debbie,
Oh,
what do you think about this?" "Oh, da 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 da," and then da da da, and then he goes on and talks and all this stuff. And it was nothing against him, but I didn't trust myself to think that God was giving me a vehicle based on my experience. And I just was like hiding behind this thing that I thought I needed. Like, I thought I needed to be, because I have a client that's in Los Angeles that she was very outspoken with businesses during COVID, and she has been like fighting for businesses and doing a lot of community stuff to keep people safe in their businesses because they've had crime and they've had stabbings and all this
Oh,
stuff. And so she was like, her show was called SOS Los Angeles, and I was like, I don't know why, but God feel, I feel I want to help, some of these business owners over there. And even though I'm in Arizona, and I mean, luckily the station manager, like scolded me because, she's like, this is a horrible show. This is awful. It's like, and I was like, I got out of my contract a little early, thankfully, because it was just such a disaster. But, again, it's like I just stepped into it too. Again, like we're starting a podcast as well called The Business Concierge. And I did one interview with my husband yesterday, and I was like, what in the world was I so afraid of? Like, why was I having to hide behind someone else because I thought, oh, he has influence. Oh, he's got all these millions of people in California, but it didn't translate because
right.
he was on the radio complaining, like, because a lot of radio is about complaining, like,
Fair.
a lot of time, just traditional radio, like, it's just there's a lot of it that, talk radio, because it was talk radio. And so it's a lot of complaining. Like, people just like to hear themselves complain, complain, and of course it was all about complaining about California. And so I thought that he would have influence with business owners. It didn't translate. So that's why you have to be really careful that you don't get caught up in somebody else's dream, something they're doing, when
Right.
you yourself is like, I could just, I got my microphone right here, I can, and my little ring light, I can just, now I've got Riverside, so I can, even better than Zoom, for AI. And I'm like, what am I like trying to prove? But I also, and that's why I don't, to me, it's like, I just say yes. If somebody says, hey, I want to be on your podcast, I'm like, because I'm always blown away. If I say yes instead of like, well, I need to find out everything, duh, 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 it's
Right.
like, because
Exactly.
you don't know like the opportunity. You have no
Exactly.
idea like what's gonna happen and how you're gonna be blessed. Like, I mean, I'm not even kidding you. Like, I'm gonna tell you, like, you're up to big things because when you did that introduction, like, I'm not kidding, I was almost crying because I just know that, like, you're doing God's work, like, you're doing something. And I've had some other, people that I've been on their shows, and I know that they're doing, and it doesn't even matter how many like views and how much, is going on, but, it's just the fact that you're not waiting for someone else to give you permission, to do something. And again, I think, a lot of people, they're like, I got to wait till it's perfect. I got to have the perfect, like, I don't even have a background. Like, I'm still like, I mean, we're going to like redecorate this, room and stuff, but I'm like, I don't care. Like, I just want to
Yeah.
like
And
serve
that's
people,
so true. I mean, and that's something that I have to overcome as well is I'm a perfectionist. I want everything to be perfect. And I think the most fun that I've ever had was being like, no, like no, that's fine, And I was actually talking to my husband's brother the other day, and he was like, no, I want to figure it. He was struggling with some schoolwork, and he was like, I want to figure it out. I need to do it. And da, da, da. And I was like, why? I was like, yes, with working towards something, you should want to master it, right?
Yes.
You
Hmm.
should want to
Yep.
nail it perfectly every time. But I said to myself, I was like, and I've been applying this to my own life. Have you ever thought about just getting through it rather than staying on one question repeatedly until it's absolutely perfect, until you master every concept, until it makes perfect sense? Have you ever thought about making it through the course and then going back and going back until you feel like it is you, you know?
Mhm.
And after that, I've been like, I'm gonna do it. You know, I have all these ideas and I've been
Right.
so scared to not be able to finish, you know? And I just said, well, if you're gonna start, just start anyways, you know?
Right.
And I love, like you said, being able to just talk to other people. Like something that I've been overcoming myself is speaking on other people's show. I haven't started yet,
Mm.
but I will.
Oh, good.
Is
Well,
because
I'll put you on my show.
thank you. I would love
Let's
to.
go. I
I
know.
would love to because I'm like, I don't have any expertise per se. I know what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about finances. I'm
Mhm.
passionate about, businesses and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't even have half a toe in the door, you know? And I'm like, how could I go on somebody's show and speak about something that I have no credibility behind me,
Mm.
you know? But I have this feeling inside of me that says, just do it anyways. Just
Right.
and
So just question, so what is your book about?
my book is actually about how young folks or people who have never figured out their financial situation can start to recover
Ooh.
financially. Something that I will say, and I'm very proud of myself, is that I've always been good at managing my finances. I've actually been good at managing other people's finances. Even at
Oh, great.
17, 18 years old, I've been working since I was 16. People would say, oh gosh, how do you manage to save up all this money and still be able to spend and stuff like that? Or how do you have a 700 credit score at 18 years old?
Ooh,
Um,
hey, hey,
yeah,
woo, there
yeah.
you go.
um,
Wow.
I would give them advice, and especially in a world like this where we're over consumers, you can
Yes.
still consume, but still
Wow.
save. You can
Yeah.
still consume and, have what you want, but also
Mhm.
learn the ability to wait. That is something that my generation struggles with. We want
Oh,
something and
sure.
we want it now, and that's
Mhm.
not something that we can afford to have all the time. And just my book was basically, thinking that the waiting game is fun. If
Mm.
you are comfortable with the idea of working 40, 50, how much ever long you have to work, or maybe reducing bills or reducing something in order to
Mm.
get what you want more, in the long,
Yeah, right.
you'll be able to have that. And so it's only like 64 pages, I think, to be exact. But I thought it was really jam packed, with
Good.
emotional spending or, stupid tax, paying for something that you don't have to pay for because,
Right, right.
you weren't
Yeah,
being
like,
taught.
okay, could you walk to the restaurant down the street, or are you getting, Uber
DoorDash.
Eats?
Exactly.
DoorDash.
And that was something, when I'm an emotional spender. And that is
Okay.
something that I had to
Yes.
overcome. And one
Mhm.
thing that I will always overspend on, at which I've learned to, not do, is eating. I
Yeah.
I had to sit down with myself and be like, yes, I could afford to DoorDash Chipotle, which is my favorite restaurant. Terrible, I know. I could DoorDash Chipotle for $21, but I know that if I go in store and get the veggie burrito that I love, it is only $10. Okay.
Right.
And so it's like, just
Oh my
thinking,
gosh.
having a little
Mhm.
bit of thought really helps and takes us a long way. And I spoke to
Oh,
this person last weekend, and he's my age, actually, 23 years old. And he was like, oh my gosh, we do not think for too long about anything. And I was like, yes, this is true. I'm like, this generation, like you said, we have the attention span of a gnat. It's
yeah.
terrible. And
Ours does too,
yeah,
unfortunately. Now it's getting to be where people are just like ding, ding, ding. It's like they're just forward, forward, forward. It's like
yeah. And I'm
scroll,
like, oh
scroll,
my
scroll.
gosh. Yeah, we need to. calm down and
Yeah,
slow down.
I agree. Yes.
And just, we can live the life that we want. I love makeup.
Mhm.
I love dresses. I don't have to get that every week, you know?
No.
And me 3 years ago,
Right.
as financially responsible as I thought I was, I would get up and be like, I'm going to Ulta today, and like have
Yeah.
no second thought about it.
Right.
And so
Oh my gosh.
that is my personal message. And that's, something I get really excited about.
Oh my gosh, I can tell. And
Yeah.
so I have some strategies that are pretty radical for people to be able to get into um like trading. Like I actually have a trading platform that we have started doing it ourselves, that it's a little bit, I mean, people can actually get either like some business funding. So you could maybe get like 10,000, 20,000, $50,000. And get this, what they do is they actually put a portion of that in this trading platform so that it multiplies. Actually, it's a global hedge fund, and they actually trade every day. So you get this compounding interest and trades that are like two or three trades. They just do two or three trades a day, and they can make sometimes 80%, 100% on these little trades, and then
Yeah.
it adds up. So we actually did. We're in the process of doing this ourselves. We've been vetting it. It's actually a friend of mine who's in business funding, and so we took a $10,000 um, credit card stacking, 0% interest for 12 months, which I highly recommend to people, even if they have a job. Okay. This is a really good tip, is that if you have a job or you're making income and you have about that 700 score, you can qualify for these 0% interest credit cards that are for 12 months, maybe 8 months, something like that. And so we took part of one of the credit cards that we qualified for, we put it into this fund, and we took the money. Like, it basically started trading on January 22nd,
Okay.
and it's gone up 600%. So we now have paid off, we can pay off the 10,000, and we have another about 13,000 right now. So it's like, and this is helping regular people who, again, I mean, my friend Jimmy has a big heart to help, people, and he actually is from his family's he's first generation from Medellin, Colombia,
Wow.
and he's got kids that are in college now and high school, I believe, and so he really wanted to help like regular people because he works a lot in the Latino community, and a lot of times, they just have not been able to leverage, their good credit and get some of this money. But they've been doing this for almost a year, and they have case studies of people that have put in, anywhere from 5,000 on up, so like 100,000 or more. And so our money is going to continue to build to where we can pay off debt. We can also get more bigger funding, because a lot of times they recommend you buying what's called a shelf corporation, which is a seasoned business that they have lines of credit. So this way now you're leveraging again your good credit, but going back to the people that, if you've got a W2 right now and you can qualify for 10,000, 20,000, being able to have that capital before you need it in a business. Like, that is like huge life
It
lesson for me,
is.
because a lot of times people they want to get that capital at one, it's too late. Like, they're like, I need this money now. Like, I'm like, yeah, I've spent too much money, or I haven't had the sales, or something's going on. And so I'm like, man, if you can get this money before you need it, And I've been mentoring even a friend of mine right now that, he's been on a commission sale job for like the last 4 years. It's a little, touch and go right now. And I said, you still have a job. I go get this line of credit for yourself, because if you need the cushion, this'll like this way you won't have to be reactive about the next job that you get, you
Right.
know? So
Right.
again, it's just a big deal to be able to use credit in a good way. You don't want to use it just to go blow money and just, buy all the things that nobody cares about. Like,
Right.
even though
Exactly.
I'm a shopper, okay, I'm a shopper. I like things, but I've been able to find, I mean, oh my gosh, especially in furniture, because that's my, yeah, one of my jams, and I go on Facebook Marketplace. I
Mhm.
find all these, oh my God, I find things all the time. And I even bought like a whole China set, like for $80, like
Yeah.
stuff like that, because again, you're getting sometimes the quality with the secondhand, and depending on where people live, I mean, you can find treasures that nobody needs anymore, and then it's new to you.
Exactly. I mean, and that's another thing I think I included in a small portion of my book is you can have what you want at a lower price. I mean, this dress, I love it. Like you said,
Yeah.
retro. It's so me. It's an $80 dress. I got it from the thrift store for 10 bucks. I am so grateful.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's like if you like I said, take the time and like know what you want and find what you want. You can get it for what you can essentially afford. So,
Correct.
and I find what you said about that line of credit to be extremely interesting. And like my business that I've started up, it's a cleaning company, something that
Mhm.
I like. But
Yeah.
my husband, he's starting his own business again. He's already had it, but he dissolved it and now he's building it back up. And somebody like himself could benefit, somebody who needs a larger vehicle to carry a lawnmower or irrigation supply,
Yeah,
stuff like that,
absolutely. Yeah. Mhm.
could certainly
Yeah. So
benefit.
this could give you like if it was a situation where it was like a 5,000 or a $10,000 infusion of, in this vehicle, they, the trading platform, it's like they basically can, 5 to 10x the money
Yeah.
because of the daily compounding interest. So it's not a situation where people have to, um, again, and I tell people I'm not a financial advisor. I'm an entrepreneur that I made a lot of connections with other people in these industries in order to make, those good decisions, so because we've made a lot of bad decisions. So I'm like, the last 5 years, like we've been making a lot better decisions about, certain finances. um and to hack a little bit of this situation where, these vehicles in which you can, and then even in crypto right now, like people are making some big gains. So it's like if you can get some of the credit to where, these might make your payments. So, maybe it won't make you rich, but at least it'll, it could cover your bills, you
Right.
know? And so yeah, if anybody's interested in, getting that information, I'm more than happy, to help. And Jimmy, my friend who has this, program, they work with people on business credit. If you need to work on your credit, those kinds of things. But again, starting small, like we started small with this, and it was, blowing us away. And people are still waiting on the sidelines. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, we're making this money, every month, and it's like, we've taken money out. So that's a big deal for people because
Yeah.
because there are vehicles out there. You got to be careful that you don't want something that just you put the money in and you can never get it out. I mean, that's
Exactly.
basically like a
Yeah.
Ponzi scheme. And unfortunately, in the crypto space, There are those types of vehicles out there, and it's not the company's fault necessarily. It's just the fact that they cannot, um, they can't
Recover.
help the fact that they haven't been able to raise enough money to trade, with that particular token. So it's like it's that pre-token status, and so not everybody can get to a tokenization. And actually, I have another company that I work with in gold, and they're actually working with a company out of Singapore that it's a crypto company that's going to be backed by gold. And so people can invest in the crypto and knowing that it's backed by gold.
Yeah. Okay. That makes
So those are things again, and like I know we're gonna stay in touch.
yeah,
And
of
so
course.
I would love to help you like any way that I can, because this is what I love to do. I don't always, from people are like, "Oh, are you a coach?" I'm like, "No, I'm not a coach." I'm like, "I'm a connector. I love to connect people to the people that they need because they do know how to do it right." I said I when I start, I mean, this is how you know that God equips people, because when I started doing the tax credit program, I mean literally don't even, I mean, I still, to this day, I do not know how to balance a checkbook. I'm not a finance person. I'm not. I mean, I've been in jobs that I've been a loan officer and a real estate agent, but to me, that's not my forte. Like and so I was really nervous. I was like, "Oh my God, are people going to listen to me?" But it was only because I had the expert. Like I was able to, you know, give them over to the person that could help them. And then I got paid for doing that, So again, you don't have to have all the answers. Like you just have to go and serve. Like I'm not kidding you. If you're thinking about the money, you're in the
Yeah.
wrong thing. You're but you
Yep.
because the money is just a byproduct of it. It's like you have to love what you're doing. You have to know that you're doing it for the right reasons, because the money game, it can really mess you up. I mean,
Yeah.
it can really mess with your brain because you're doing things for the wrong reasons and you're just unhappy. I mean, even if you're making money, like, I don't even think that that's, an end all to be all, because some people have a lot of money and they're really unhappy.
Yeah. And that's true. And I guess I would like to end off on that note.
Okay.
Don't necessarily do it for the money. I
No.
actually, when I was speaking to this minister last week, and I told him, last year around this time, I was making more than I could ever imagine. And I had to sacrifice a lot for that. I was making about $5,000 to $6,000 a month, which is
Nice.
significant for me even now because
Yes.
I'm making significantly less than that. But I was working about 72 hours a week for it. I didn't have any time with my husband. I didn't get to, enjoy my home. I was hardly eating, like
Oh, sure. Yeah, you're on the
yeah,
go.
I was on the go. Yeah, I was working 72 hours a week and I was making that money and I did not see any rewards from it at all. You thought I would be able to pay off my credit cards. You think I'd be able to, have the most fun in the world, but I didn't have time for that. I didn't have time to think. I didn't have time to balance my checkbook or anything like that. So, you know, perfect statement. Don't do it for the money. It's not worth it. Have fun. You only have one life, as far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned,
Yes,
anyways. So you
absolutely.
might as well pursue your passions.
Yes.
And
Go write that book,
yeah, exactly. Go write that
Do
book.
a podcast.
Exactly. Do whatever it is that you want
Yeah.
to do. And so I'd like to say thank you one more time for
Aw, thank
spending this time with
you.
me and talking and connecting with me and whoever may be listening right now.
Oh my gosh.
And
I'm telling you what, like, I'm going to help, like, promote this out too, and if, people wanna connect with me on dmbusinessadvisors.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, It's Debbie Merrick, and then I have Frank in parentheses because that's my maiden name. And so I have Girl with Vision and Digital Girl with Vision um, on social medias and stuff. But it's just, I love to talk to people, and I would be happy, like whatever you need. And even your husband, if he would love to, to talk to me, like I would love to support your guys' goals. And
Thank you for tuning into today's episode of Beyond the Balance. If this conversation inspired you, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Keep redefining wealth, rebuilding your future, and taking control of your financial journey. And always remember, you don't need a perfect balance to make a perfect comeback.